This podcast is brought to you by Penji. Penji is a creative subscription service that gives you access to pre-vetted, agency-trained creatives from all over the world. From graphic design to illustrations to social media management and web development, it's all included for one monthly price. It's time to say goodbye to the hassle of searching for top-notch creative talent. With Penji, you get quality and consistency delivered right to your inbox every day. Carefully crafted for you by humans. So meet your new creative team today. Head over to penji.co for more and enter the coupon code located within the podcast show notes.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Unified Purpose, the podcast where we share inspiring tales of compassion, resilience, and community spirit. I'm your host, Oliver, Penji's board advisor, and today I'm joined by a very special guest, Dr. Brooke Grindlinger, Chief Scientific Officer at the New York Academy of Sciences. Brooke, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Oliver. Thanks for having me. I look forward to our conversation today.
Me too. And now, before we dive in, like I mentioned, we'll start with a quick game I call Pitch Me This. You'll have 30 seconds, 30 seconds to sell me on this completely silly, but let's call it kind of futuristic, kind of realistic business idea. Are you ready?
I don't know, but let's do it anyway.
All right. So today's prompt is, well, this is very simple. A gadget that instantly translates your pet thoughts into human language. Go.
Ooh, okay. Oliver, tell me, do you have a pet at home? Maybe a cat or a dog, a parakeet, perhaps? What's your fur baby that you have at home in your life?
I have 3 cats.
3 cats. Now, I'm sure that you probably think that you have a good understanding of what your cats are trying to tell you with their behavior and their different meows and sounds. But have you ever really wanted to be 100% sure of exactly what your cat is trying to tell you when they communicate with you through meowing?
I do actually.
So what if I told you that there is a gadget that will instantly translate your cat's communication into whatever language you prefer to speak at home when you're with your fur babies? Would you be interested in knowing every single thought and word that your cat wants to communicate to you?
Maybe not everything, because sometimes, my cat gets kind of rude, but yeah, I would love to know what my cat thinks of me.
Cats do have a little bit of sass and personality, don't they? But imagine if you could hear them say, I love you, or you're my primary human, or what time's breakfast tomorrow, or can we go take a nap, or cuddles on the couch? Imagine how much that would enrich your experience with your cat. Tell me how much you would love a gadget like that.
I will love it. That will make my day. That will make my week. That will make my year.
Well, as it happens, we've developed a terrific product. It's called Pet Talk. It's simply something that you slip over your ear and it pops in your ears, just like AirPods that you might use every day for your mobile devices. And it will instantly translate into your preferred language whatever your cat is saying to you. But the good news is, you can also mute it at any time. So if you don't want to know what your cat is trying to tell you at 6:30 a.m. when they're standing on your chest while you're trying to sleep and they're meowing at you for breakfast, you can still mute that. Would you be interested in something like that?
I'm interested, and this might be like Shark Tank. I want to buy it.
Fantastic.
I want to invest.
Someone told me once that when you get a yes in a meeting, you end the conversation. How did I do?
Well, you did. This is one of the greatest answers that we had so far, actually. Most people tell me, yeah, this is idea, and this is how it will be benefit for you. And instead, you gave me like real life examples. I have my cats here. They also wake me up for breakfast. And yeah, I would love to know what they say after I give them food, not before.
It comes from lived experience. Trust me.
It comes from lived experience. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's great to see that we broke the ice.
We did indeed.
So with this creative juices flowing in our brains, and to start us off, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and you have more than 10 years, more than 15 years with the New York Academy of Sciences. Can you tell us about yourself and your journey with them?
Certainly. So let me tell you about the New York Academy of Sciences to put my work into context. So the New York Academy of Sciences is a nonprofit membership organization that was founded in downtown New York City in 1817. We are among one of the oldest scientific organizations in the United States. And for more than 200 years now, our work has focused on driving science-based solutions to some of society's greatest challenges. And we do that by focusing in three specific areas: scientific research, science education, and science policy. So in my role as Chief Scientific Officer, I'm a microbiologist by training. I studied the bacteria and other organisms like viruses that are in us, around us, and on us all day and every day, and how they help keep us healthy, but sometimes can also cause disease, and how we can combat that. So as a microbiologist, I'm very much interested in scientific discoveries that help us understand the relationship between organisms and the human body, and how we can protect ourselves against disease and treat disease when it happens. But the New York Academy of Sciences work spans all areas of STEM: science, technology, engineering, math, and medicine. And so we have a host of programs at our organization that supports scientists at all career stages, whether K through 12 students, undergraduates in college, postgraduates in university, and even professional working scientists, as well as just science enthusiasts, people who don't necessarily have technical training in science, but are really curious and want to understand how the process of science happens, and what are some of the latest scientific discoveries and how they impact them in their everyday life. And it's a really fun job. I've been with the organization for more than 15 years in different roles, and had the opportunity to meet and support and work with some wonderful scientists and scientific organizations around the world. And I'd love to share a few stories about our work with you today.
And I would love to hear them. I would love to hear about any of the stories that you have. You told me the organization has been around for more than hundreds of years, and
more than 200 years.
More than 200 years, and you've been with them for 15 years. Can you share us a little bit some stories that you would like to highlight about your time with them?
Certainly. A couple of programs I'd love to tell you about that I think all of your listeners will probably relate to and be surprised about how science might be impacting their everyday lives, but they just don't know it. So something that I wanted to mention was today, public funding that supports scientific research is actually shrinking in the United States. But the need for really bold scientific discovery is probably greater than ever. We're facing issues like climate change. How do we produce enough food for a growing global population? How do we combat public health crises like the COVID pandemic and similar pandemics that we might see in the future? And how do we prepare as the world's population gets older and we have many more people that need health and other medical support as they age? So one of the interesting things about how science is funded is that if we look back more than 50 years ago, say to the 1960s, in the United States, the US government actually funded about 2/3 of scientific research.
Wow.
But if we fast forward to today, it's actually less than 1/5. And the private sector business has very much stepped forward to help fill that gap and cover and provide support for a lot of the nation's research and discovery. But one thing about business funding is that it's very often tends to flow towards projects that have very clear commercial purpose and potential. So companies are looking to invest in scientific innovation where there's a very short horizon and clear path to a product that can be sold to a customer and help recoup finances to cover the cost of the original investment in designing and discovery of new products, whether that's a diagnostic or material or a therapeutic. So there's left this very critical gap in how do we fund science today. And I think there's a really important role for non-profit organizations like the New York Academy of Sciences to play in that shifting ecosystem. And one of the ways we do that is by partnering with philanthropy. So that could be high net worth individuals, could be private family foundations, or it could be corporate foundations, individuals and entities that want to take the financial resources that they have and divert them into supporting scientific research that develops solutions for some of society's greatest challenges. And we look at developing partnerships with philanthropic organizations where we can invest in really bold science, often very early stage science, where that commercial potential that might be far down the road isn't as clear yet. And that traditional funders like governments or the private sector might think is too risky at this time, or is a little bit beyond or outside of their mandate. So one of the things that I think we do best is building partnerships with philanthropic organizations. And one example of that is a program we've developed called the Blavatnik Awards for Young Scientists. This is a program that we founded in 2007, so almost 20 years ago now. And it's a collaboration with the Blavatnik Family Foundation. And over almost 20 years now for that program, we have identified and celebrated and provided financial support to more than 500 young scientists across the United States and across the UK and also in Israel. So we look for extremely talented scientists at the beginning of their career, people who have made some early impressive discoveries, and we can see they have talent, creativity, and the potential to go on to become perhaps Nobel Prize winning scientists with future discoveries. But at that very early critical stage in their career, they might be struggling to secure the necessary funding that they need to support their research. And they might also have some really wild out-of-the-box ideas where they'd like to pursue a certain path of research. They think there's a possibility to make a great discovery, but traditional funders won't yet take a bet on them. They think your idea is a little too risky. It's not, it's a little too unproven. And so it can be challenging for them to get the support they need to really pursue those high risk but potentially high reward ideas. So in partnering with the Blavatnik Family Foundation, we've created a program to find those extremely talented scientists and then provide them with unrestricted funding so they can pursue those out-of-the-box unusual ideas that they may not have been able to get funded by other entities. And to date, I mentioned we've recognized and supported around 500 young scientists. Yeah. And if we look at the impact of that funding, we've invested about $20 million in supporting those young scientists. And they work in very diverse fields, from life sciences and biomedicine to chemical sciences, physical sciences, and engineering. And the impact has been quite extraordinary. We've seen some of these award honorees go on to found companies, more than 50 companies based on their award-winning research early in their career. And today, a number of those companies are publicly traded on the New York Stock Exchange and the NASDAQ. They employ hundreds and hundreds of individuals, so contributing to economic development in our country. They're bringing scientific ideas to market with tangible products that society can use and benefit from. And if we look at the valuation of those companies today, collectively, those 50 companies are valued at over $2 billion.
Wow.
So you can really see how modest investments can help turn really bold scientific ideas into global impact. And can I share a couple of stories with you about some of the discoveries that these young scientists have made?
Yeah, I'm all ears. I would like to add something in there is that me being someone who's not very familiar with the process of science funding and things like that, I didn't know that like you said, sometimes private funding comes with a commercial end. But now nonprofits, on the other side of the coin, there are the nonprofits who have, let's say, humanities benefits at their core when they're funding these new programs. And I love to hear more about any of these discoveries, businesses that you would like to share.
Thank you. So I have two stories to share with you that I think listeners and viewers will find really inspiring. So the first story is about a chemist. This is a young scientist that we recognized a few years ago through the Blavatnik Awards for Young Scientists program in the United States. And he was working on trying to develop a way to break down so-called forever chemicals. And forever chemicals are man-made substances. We've created them. And they have many benefits. They repel oil and water. They are resistant to very high temperatures. They make other materials more durable. And those specific qualities that they can impart have made them really useful in products that you and I and your listeners, I'm sure, are using every day. Think about products like non-stick cookware, non-stick saucepans that you might use to make dinner every night in your kitchen, or packaging for food that helps it maintain its shelf life for longer and not spoil quickly. Even the foam that firefighters use to fight fires, and even water repellent clothing. So all of these products around us in everyday life have these forever chemicals as part of the makeup of the product. And while these chemicals provide all these wonderful benefits, they are so enduring that they don't degrade naturally for an extremely long time. And that's why they're called forever chemicals. So unfortunately, that means they've built up in our environment, in our water supply, and they can even be detected in our own bodies today. And there's been some recent studies that have unfortunately linked the buildup of forever chemicals to some certain types of cancers and to immune disorders. So there's an urgency for the scientific community to find a way to be able to safely and efficiently and effectively break down these chemicals in the environment, and then also ideally eliminate them from the production of these products. So find replacements that will still impart the same properties to the products we currently use them in, but not have these adverse health effects. So this particular scientist was struggling to find financial support from traditional funding agencies that fund scientific research to help him develop and test the idea he had for a way to break down forever chemicals. His idea was considered too risky, unproven. But he applied for one of our awards and he was selected as an honoree. And with the recognition and unrestricted support that was provided to him, within just 2 years of winning the award, he went on to identify a viable method through chemistry, to break down these forever chemicals. And it was such an important discovery that it was featured in the New York Times and newspapers around the world. So that to me is like such an inspirational example of where there's an idea, a really creative idea, and we can bring the resources of philanthropy to bear on supporting talent and creative ideas that might be considered a little too wild or out of the box by others to support. And within a relatively short time, there is a clear outcome and impact that will benefit all of society. That's my first story. And then I have a second story from the world of medicine.
Amazing. All right. I'm all ears.
So one of our other awards recipients, I thought this was so cool. He developed a wearable cap, an imaging cap that can gather data and images of your brain's activity. So if you think about traditional methods by which medical providers, doctors take images of your brain, what might come to mind for you?
I think there's this MRI machine that you have to, lay down, and it's like a big circle, and you get images.
Exactly. You have to go to hospital. It's a very large machine, the MRI machine. It's a very expensive piece of equipment in a hospital environment. And you're right. You have to lay down within that machine and you have to stay very, very still, often for a number of minutes while the machine takes the images of your brain activity. But lying still isn't something that's easy for some patients to do for that period of time. So if you think about people who might have movement disorders like Parkinson's disease that causes tremors in the body, or cerebral palsy, for example, or even children and babies where we might need to see what's happening in their brain. And we know that children and babies will not stay still at the best of times.
Play around.
And the likelihood of them sitting still for a number of minutes in this somewhat, unfamiliar, can be quite scary environment for anyone, I think, really demands some creative ideas for how can we create tools and devices that can be more practical for some of these different patient populations. So this young researcher developed this wearable cap that you can put on a patient over their head, and it will capture brain activity without needing the use of a large MRI machine. So that gives researchers and clinicians the opportunity to study the brain in almost any environment. You could go to the patient's home, so it would be a less sort of stressful and unfamiliar environment for them to have this sort of diagnostic testing done. You could do the imaging while patients are being physically active in their regular life. Parents could be interacting with their children while they're wearing the cap and not isolated from their parents and in this unfamiliar machine environment. So this type of really cool innovation, I think, has opened new doors to thinking about new ways of diagnosing brain disease, of monitoring brain activity in patients whose brain activity might be changing over time, and then also ultimately identifying new ways to treat disorders of the brain. So those are just like two examples that I think are so cool of, again, creative ideas from young scientists that we've been able to say, here's some funding, go forth and show us what you can develop and discover. We believe in you. We want to make this investment in you. And they have been able to really bear out some incredible innovations that have real world impact that we can bring to patients and everyday people.
There's what I like to do in my everyday life is connect the dots in thoughts, words, actions. And given these two examples that you've given me, there is one word that kept resonating on my head, which is trust. Trust for the future, trust on the scientists, because you guys give these investments. It's not like, okay, I give you all of these resources and by next week you'll have the results ready. No, it's not like that. It's always a constant work. And you told me the first example of the forever chemicals, it took about 2 years. I don't know how much it took for this other example of the helmet. But yeah, that word just kept resonating in my head. Trust for the future, trust for a hopeful future where we have the benefits of forever chemicals without the downsides, where we have where we can do all of these medicine procedures in kids, in people maybe with Parkinson's, in their comfortable areas in their houses, instead of having trouble with them at the hospital. And it feels good to know that this inherent hopefulness or inherent good of humanity is being put into work. It's not let's say, it's not just words that we say, it's actions that you guys are taking. It feels great to know that.
Yeah, and I love that you identified the word trust. I think there is a certain element of trust that we need to have in the scientific process. As you mentioned, scientific discoveries, it's not going to happen in minutes, days, or weeks or months. Many times it takes years of research, of trying and failing and experimenting and changing course to uncover new knowledge in science. And at each step along the way, we learn new information, and that sort of opens the door wider or shines more light on a problem or a question or just an area in which we don't necessarily have answers yet that we can try and tackle through scientific experimentation. So I do like to try and encourage people to appreciate how the scientific process of uncovering knowledge and developing new tools and technologies through science, how much time is needed for that to happen, and how it can be somewhat of a winding road, not always a straight and clear path for those doing the research. And often as we learn new information, it shapes how we believe any one system or the world around us to be. So we continue to learn, and I guess scientific paradigms continue to change as we uncover new information. So appreciating that journey, and that it's a process, that scientific discovery is also an imperfect process, and that investment today won't necessarily return direct impact tomorrow, that it may take some reasonable period of time before the fruits of that early investment come to bear. So I think we will have to be patient as we can be in how fast we can expect discoveries to be made. We've been fortunate enough to see the speed of discovery happen through the COVID-19 pandemic, for example. What probably felt like to most people to be an extreme passage of time between when the pandemic first broke out to when we understood the virus that was causing this and how it was working within the human body to then developing a vaccine. That was quite a passage of time. But in the larger picture of vaccine development, which often can take decades, the very truncated process through which scientific organizations and the scientists working with them and clinicians and others in the medical care system were able to develop a vaccine and get it out to the people was an exceptional example of how fast we can work when the resources are there. So again, whenever we can bring resources to bear on a really important challenge that society is facing, where we think there's a science-based solution, that is a place where the New York Academy of Sciences is, ready, willing, and able to be a partner at the table, supporting scientific discovery and the scientists behind those discoveries. And as someone working at the organization, when it's your job every day to work out how do we help those discoveries along and the scientists behind them, it feels really meaningful that even though I'm not the scientist who's putting on the lab coat and running the experiments and making the discoveries, that I can be part of that larger fabric of the ecosystem that is helping these people make advances that ultimately people like you and I and others will benefit from every day, and ultimately probably take for granted that, I'm going to get a flu shot this year and that will protect me from getting the flu. Or I'm going to pick up my cell phone and I can call my mom in Australia and she will answer. And that's through the power of incredible technology that's been developed through science.
Yeah, I'm grateful for that, because I just recently I'm starting to take some allergy medicines for some dust allergies that I have, and I'm grateful that they exist, because I've been having a hell of a way with those allergies. But yeah, I would like to ask you, Brooke, if there is, given that you have like I said, 15 years of experience with the academy, what is that one, let's call it insight or perspective, that you wish more people will understand about scientific research? You right now we're talking about people like me who are not very familiar with how all of these things go.
I think probably, the most important thing was that I love to convey about scientific research is what I just mentioned about the nature of the scientific process, being a winding road, being not always predictable and not necessarily fast. And just the appreciation for investment now will reap rewards in the future, but it might take some time for that process to happen. And it's very important, I think, for us as a society, as nations, as cities, as communities, to continue to invest in scientific discovery from the earliest ideas, where, again, you're just trying to uncover understanding of a problem through the scientific nature of it, without necessarily knowing how that information might translate into a device, a therapeutic, a new tool or technology for society's use down the line. The other thing that I would like to say is that scientific talent can be found and can emerge from anywhere around the world. I think some people grow up thinking that the career path in science is, again, a very straight line, that you must be an excellent student in science in high school, that you must go to elite universities around the world and study science, and that there's sort of very limited career paths in science, a research scientist in a university or in a corporation, for example. But what I've seen over time, particularly through some of the awards and prize programs and fellowship programs that the New York Academy of Sciences delivers to support scientists and their breakthroughs, is that talent and scientific innovation emerges worldwide. Often there is a focus on scientific research in the United States or in Europe, where there are very well-established resources and networks and communities and infrastructure that supports the scientific ecosystem. But scientific discoveries and innovation and creativity, there are scientists worldwide that have incredible ideas, but not necessarily the resources as other scientists in the world have to bring those ideas to fruition. So we also look to as ways to try and uncover scientific talent that might be in places and pockets around the world that you would not consider sort of the usual suspects and places to find talent. And through some of our programs, we've seen that happen. If I can share two examples with you. We, through our prize programs, we have recognized scientists who only work part-time at their university. And I think many people would think that if you were going to be performing as a scientist at the highest level and most competitive and most productive, that you must be a full-time, in a full-time role at your university or research lab, that you're probably a tenured professor. But we've seen talented scientists make breakthrough discoveries that haven't followed that career path, that maybe only work in a part-time role and not a full-time role. Or they may not have gone from high school to college straight into postgraduate degrees and higher degrees and then a professional scientist. We've seen some of our awardees finish high school and unfortunately not have the financial resources to pursue a college degree at that time. Or they've had to finish high school and go and straight into the workforce, into a blue-collar career to support their family. They need to generate an income for their family. One wonderful example of a scientist we recognized with an award was just that. He finished high school, couldn't afford college at that time, spent a number of years in blue-collar roles, providing for his family, and then finally was in a position to be able to go to community college, and then went to university, and then pursued higher degrees and tertiary degrees, and getting a PhD, and now is a full professor at one of the nation's most prestigious universities. So I think sharing stories like this of scientists who have made incredible contributions, but have maybe come from slightly different paths or followed a slightly different road to what most people think, okay, this is the road that I must pursue. And if I divert for that, there's no way that I could be successful in this career path. So trying to tell people that talent emerges from anywhere, to not be afraid to take a leap and pursue an interest and career in science if you do have that interest in science early, and that if you're a parent or a grandparent and you have children or others in your family or community that are in that K through 12 age range, we know that exposure at that age in middle and high school, exposure to hands-on science experiences and projects where students get the feel for testing science that has real-world relevance to them, that translates into higher likelihood of those students pursuing careers in science as their educational path continues. So looking for opportunities early to expose kids to science and to keep them engaged in scientific activities in the lead up to college, we really need to continue to do that so that we can fill our pipeline of scientific talent that are going to be the people who make the discoveries 5, 10, 15, and 20 years from now that will really shape the future of our world. So we also at the Academy have a number of programs that support kids from kindergarten through 12th grade, giving them hands-on exposure to STEM experiences and projects for free at no cost to them, no matter where they are in the world, to be able to meet other students their age from other cultures and across borders that have similar interests in science, and we can support them through learning experiences that really, I think, inspire and engage their brain in how cool and fun science can be, and open their eyes to how science can be of benefit to them in the real world, and try and encourage them to pursue careers in the long term, while also just building their knowledge and understanding of STEM and skills like communication, collaboration, creativity, critical thinking, really foundational 21st century skills that kids and teens need to develop if they're going to be successful, whether they pursue a STEM career or any type of career. And that's a program I'll mention. It's called the Junior Academy, where we, again, provide opportunities for students to get involved in science and learn through some of our activities that we can offer. And that's really fun. And I guarantee you that the ideas that 13-year-old kids will come up with for science projects are more wild and crazy and innovative than I ever would have come up with as a 13-year-old. So kids today have some of the most creative and out-of-the-box ideas. So I think tapping into that early interest and creativity is a wonderful benefit to them. But if we can pull that talent and creativity into the workforce of the future, we'll all benefit from that.
That's amazing, Brooke. Well, thank you so much for sharing your insights and sharing all of these opportunities that the youth can have at the New York Academy of Sciences. And think that will be all for today. And for everyone listening, if you'd like to learn more or get involved, you can check out the links in the description. As always, thank you for tuning in. And Brooke, thank you once again for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Oliver. And thanks for listening in the conversation today.
It was my pleasure. Well, see you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Unified Purpose, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest. And to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend and, of course, subscribe.